Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. Today's news are we would be discussing the important articles related to economy from the Hindu news. In page 1 there is no news about economy, same with the editorial page, and in the Moneywise page we don't need to read this article from the exam point of view. You can directly go to the text and context. Here there is an article about the psychology of the taxpayers. Before that, let's look at the basics of taxes. Broadly, there are two types of taxes. That is the direct and indirect tax. What are direct taxes? Direct taxes are those taxes on which the tax incidence and impact is on the same individual or entity. Let's understand this. The situation when the tax arises, that is the incidence, and the impact, who pays the tax, is both the same person in case of direct tax. For example, if we take income tax for individuals, under income tax, you earn an income according to the tax rules of the economy of the country, have to pay certain tax for certain slab of income. The incidence arises and the impact is also felt by the same person because that same individual has to deposit the tax to the government. He is paying out of his own pocket. And when it comes to the corporate tax, it's the same thing. The profits of the corporate tax would be taxed and they have to pay the tax. When it comes to indirect tax, here the incidence and the impact would be different individuals. Take the example of GST. The tax incidence happens at a time when we purchase the goods and services. It can be with a wholesaler or a reseller, or a wholesaler selling to reseller, reseller selling to the final customer. But in case of indirect taxes, the impact would be shifted to the next person on the supply chain. The manufacturer would charge it to the wholesaler, wholesaler would charge it to the retailer, the retailer would charge it to the consumer. So finally, the impact of the tax is felt by the end consumer. Here the incidence arises at various points of time. GST is collected at various points of the supply chain, but all the entire GST is borne by the end consumer. So the impact is on the end consumer. Another division of taxes are progressive and regressive taxes. Progressive taxes are those which help in the wealth distribution, those which help bridge the gap of the rich and poor. For example, income tax. Under income tax, we have various slabs. So the more you earn, you would be taxed at a higher rate. So here, the person who is earning a higher income should be willing to pay more taxes. That is how progressive tax works. A poor man, an Ambani, would not be paying the same taxes because Ambani's tax bracket would fall into the highest category and he would be paying the additional cess charge. So he would be paying more. Because he is paying more, the government can use this money on various social benefits and the poor man also would get the benefit out of this. So because it leads to the progress in the society overall, they are called progressive taxes. And when it comes to the regressive taxes, irrespective of your income level, the taxes charged are the same. Whether a rich person or Ambani, they both have to pay the same rate of tax. The best example is the indirect tax of GST. It doesn't matter whether you are a rich person or a poor person, you have to pay the same GST rates for the services and goods that you purchase. So here the impact of GST for Ambani would be very less because for his whole income, the tax rate would be having a very less impact. But for a poor person, the impact would hit his income directly. So that's why they are called regressive tax. And there is another concept which shows the relationship between tax rates fixed by the governments and the government revenue. This relationship is famously known as the Laffer curve. Arthur Laffer, he was an economist. He showed the relationship between government revenue and the tax rates. He plots in such a way that on one axis, x-axis, we have tax rate. On the y-axis, we have government revenue. So he says that when the tax rate is zero in the economy, the government revenue would be zero because you're not imposing taxes on anybody. And again, when the taxes are 100%, the government revenue would again be zero, because when you're taking away completely whatever the person is earning, why would the person earn? You would just sit at its home. They don't want to earn because you're taking away everything. And he says that there is an ideal tax rate at which the government revenue would be maximum, because if the government increases and keeps the rate higher, people would be not willing to work because you're taking a major share of their hard work, that is their income. So they might think that why should I earn? Even if I earn, government is taking a major share of it and I may or may not get benefits out of it. So I better not earn and pay more taxes. I should be happy with whatever little I earn and pay less taxes. Again, the government charges less. If the tax rate is lower than the equilibrium rate, the government revenue won't be optimum. Because the tax base is less, the government revenue would be less. This Laffer curve shows the psychology behind the tax rates and how it would impact people and whether people are willing to pay the taxes or not. The same is covered by the article about the psychology of taxpayers and how it would impact. Now, with this background, we'll go into the article. Understanding citizens' reluctance to pay the taxes. There is this classical theory in economics which says that the citizens are willing to pay the taxes if they feel that they are going to get the benefits from the government for the taxes that they have paid. So a person would be more willingly and happily, he will be trying to pay the taxes if he is going to get good roads, good healthcare, good public education, if he is going to use all that. If he is not going to use all that, or if the government is not effective in providing all that, the citizen will start thinking, why should I pay the taxes? Because even if I pay the taxes, I am not going to get anything in return. So why should I pay it? And he'll try to look for ways to avoid the taxes in such a situation. This is the theory. And for the sake of it, a research was done in the USA in the Texas. The research paper was known as Where Do My Tax Dollars Go? The Tax Moral Effect of Perceived Government Spending. This research paper did a research on how the people think about how the government is spending would have an impact on how much taxes they are willing to pay. So we just saw this classical theory which says that my willingness to pay the tax would reduce if I feel that I'm not going to get any benefit from the government for the taxes that I have paid. So by that logic, we saw what are progressive taxes. People would not be willing to pay progressive taxes because he might feel that I am earning a higher income because of my effort and hard work, and somebody else is getting the benefit. Why should I pay that? So such will be the mindset of majority of people according to the economic theory. So they made this research in Texas and they looked at the property taxes that people were paying and their willingness, and how the willingness of paying the taxes of property would impact if the information of the people paying the taxes changed. What are the misconceptions and misperceptions that the households were having about how the government was spending the taxes? There were misconceptions about the government spending even when the information was publicly available. For the sake of the research, they took the government spending on public education, and even when the information was publicly available, the people's misconception about the government spending about how much percentage of it is on the public education was misconceived, because they didn't put the effort to go to the government website and see what the government is spending on. They just assumed. Now, under this research, the researchers informed people about how the majority of the taxes from the property taxes are going towards the public education. And this was done at a time when the people were filing for the tax return. And they wanted to see the impact of it based on the tax appeal. So what is a tax appeal? The income tax says you have to pay this much of taxes. And as a citizen who is paying, the taxpayer, he feels that okay, this is not the right amount, the calculation is wrong, and he appeals against that order of the income tax, saying this is not the tax that I am supposed to pay, this is what I am supposed to pay. That is the income tax appeal. And sometimes the income tax department wins because they are right, sometimes the taxpayer might win because he is right. So under this Texas, almost out of 3 times, 2 times the appeals were successful. So people could save almost $600, that is almost 40,000 rupees in Indian currency. So we can see that if people went for an appeal, there is a high chance that out of 2 out of 3 times that their appeals will be successful and they'll save almost 40,000 rupees. Now they gave the information about how the tax was, their property tax was being spent on public education. Now they wanted to see the willingness of the people to pay the property taxes. It so happened that all the people whose children were studying in the public schools, who, who they thought they were directly getting benefited, they were willing to pay more taxes. So all the parents of the children in the public schools, they thought that okay, because of the property taxes that I am paying, the government is spending majority of that property tax for my children who are getting benefited out of the public education, so I am getting the benefit indirectly. So they didn't go for appeal, and all those households whose children were not enrolled in public schools, their appeals increased because they thought directly I'm not getting any benefit out of this tax, why should I pay this property tax? So they put in more appeals. So this again proved the theory that people would be willing to pay the taxes if they feel that they are going to get benefits from the government for the taxes that they pay. Otherwise they would try to look for ways to evade the taxes. So what is the lesson here for the government? The lesson is that significant share of tax evasion happens only when the citizens feel that they are not going to get any benefits out of the taxes that they paid. And the government should be here made accountable so that the people should feel that they are getting benefited, and the government should spend it on all those necessities of the people where the people feel that okay, the taxes are that I am paying are being worth it. Government should actively give information to the people about on various heads, on health, education, road, on research. It should give a detailed allocation and detailed details about how the taxes that people are paying are getting impacted on the society and who are the beneficiaries. In such a time, the people would be willing to pay the taxes. These are the articles related to economy today. Thank you so much.